Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at NDN TV Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button and be the first to get notifications.
The backward state of oil-producing communities, despite the implementation of the statutory 13% oil derivation fund meant for their development, continues to give most Niger Deltans cause for worry. In this report, we take a look at how the application of such funds has impacted on oil-producing communities in the Niger Delta over the years. Soon after Nigeria's transition to democratic rule in May 1999, the government of President Olusegun Obasanjo in August that year established the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission to negotiate a new formula for revenue sharing amongst tiers of government. Under the 1999 Constitution, oil derivation formula was increased from 3% to 13% on a payment principle based on oil-producing quota from each of the 9 oil-producing states in the Niger Delta. The 13% oil derivation fund was meant to ameliorate the negative effects of environmental degradation occasioned by crude oil drilling activities on oil-producing communities. It was also conceived and implemented to fast-track development and douse tension in the restive communities. Over 20 years after it was first implemented in January 2000, the 13% oil derivation has not made any significant difference in the lives of oil-producing communities that are still left largely backward and impoverished, a development that is attributable to poor resource governance in the Niger Delta. While they admit that revenues released to states on the basis of 13% derivation are insufficient to effectively address widespread poverty and underdevelopment in the region, concerned Niger Deltans insist that state governors have failed to utilize such funds to benefit oil-producing communities.
I think over time, Niger Deltans have become conscious of this fact that huge amount of money is coming in nevertheless, notwithstanding that it's a smaller percentage than what goes to the federal government, and they are beginning to be conscious that they should see a reflection of that volume of cash that is coming in on their development.
When in 1999, derivation formula was increased from 3% to 13%, the Constitution made no provision for the establishment of a statutory body to ensure its strict implementation. But the Obasanjo administration, in its wisdom, encouraged states to establish oil mineral producing areas development commissions to manage the funds to benefit oil producing communities. Regrettably, some major oil-producing states, including Rivers, Akwa Ibom, and Bayelsa, are yet to establish such commissions. Perhaps what many observers find more disturbing is the tendency by state governors to utilize oil derivation funds to develop other areas at the expense of oil-producing communities in the Niger Delta.
The derivation principle is based on the jurisprudential principle of just deserts. Just deserts means that you who is suffering more, whoever is suffering more to produce that wealth should also take more. In other words, if you give more, you should take more. So those oil communities, oil-bearing communities, direct oil-bearing communities, they deserve greater attention.
It's only natural that in the state, consideration should also be given to those regions from which those resources are coming, because the resources came from those regions to the state and to the federal account. So if the federation considers that it is necessary to revert part of the funds to where it's coming from, why shouldn't the state do the same thing for the parts of the state that is coming from? It goes naturally, and one would expect that that would be the natural thing to do. It exists in Delta, it exists in Ondo and a number of other states. Why not do the same for all the states?
In the ongoing politics of oil derivation, the federal government is also culpable for the impoverishment of oil-producing communities. Contrary to the provisions of the 1999 Constitution in Section 162, subsection 2, that a minimum of 13% oil revenues derived from mineral resources be paid to host communities, the federal government has refused to review the percentage in the last 20 years. In some cases, it is even accused of short-changing states benefiting from the 13% derivation principle.
It's unfair on the people of the Niger Delta that we are the ones suffering the devastation of oil exploration and exploitation. And yet, we are the poorest of the poor in our nation. It's unjust.
Before the reintroduction of the derivation principle in 1999, it had been increased from 1.3% to 3% by the administration of President Ibrahim Babangida. The expectation is that over 20 years after, the derivation formula will have been reviewed to assuage the long-suffering oil-producing communities that have consistently pushed for fiscal federalism to enable them have substantial control of oil revenues generated in their domain at huge costs.
Inside the Niger Delta,